Anyways, let's get back to stuff that really matters, like the Yankees and not football. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, but seriously. So I'm going to be talking about being a warrior. So I'm doing this because I believe that with everything going on in our world today, that we need to stand for what we believe in. We need to know that we can trust each other by standing together and covering each other's back, no matter what the cost. I know that sounds crazy, but it's a true statement. And I may not be a warrior in the world's eyes, like my brother, even though he's kind of a wimp. But I am in God's eyes, and there are so many other ways to be a warrior. So the definition of a warrior, as you can see up there, is a person engaged or experienced in warfare, a person engaged in some struggle or conflict. I wrote that can range from the obvious military warfare to emotional and mental, like our thoughts, our family and spiritual conflicts. There are outside challenges, for example, things that we are dealing with in our country right now. So the divide that they're trying to create, whether it's a racial divide, whether it's a political divide, whether it's whatever the divide is, that they're trying to create this narrative that's not real. You know, there's that, the extreme divide, like I said, in the two parties, and there's also mental challenges that we need to overcome. So our thoughts sometimes can become our own worst enemy, which can ultimately lead to suicide, depression. If you're married, it could lead to domestic violence, things like that, etc. So a warrior trusts in God and believes that he can do anything, even if it seems impossible. And that's kind of where I look at with this whole thing with the election, how it seems at this point it's impossible. I'm still going to believe that God can still work because I don't believe that the right person's there. Hey, guys. So if you're willing to take that, if anything's possible, as long as you're willing to take the risk. So I also believe in a true warrior puts others above themselves. So in Philippians 4:13 it says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, right? So there are many examples of this in the Bible. But I'll be focusing mostly just on David real quick and his mighty men. To look at him he's more of a military warrior. I know there's prayer warriors, there's warriors like that, but I'll kind of be focusing a little bit more on that. So I was going to actually see if the old Stu Bear had an example of a moment in his life where he had to be not a physical warrior, but a warrior in the aspect of putting God first no matter what the cost was. So Stewie, if you would talk, come and share. Come hang out with me. That's right, it was only fair. And Joe's not even out here. Yeah.
Well, I guess to be a warrior means you have to stand for what you believe in no matter what. And when I became a Christian, I had gone on a whole spiritual journey. I know I've shared this with a couple of times. But when I finally found Jesus as my Savior, and I'm down in Florida working with my cousin construction. I lived in Long Island at the time with my parents. I couldn't wait to tell them. Call up my parents. I found it. I found the real answer. It's Jesus. And there's silence at the end of the phone. I could have been a Satanist and they would have been happy. Seriously. So I had to deal with that. My parents obviously were very upset. My father wanted to disown me. My mother wouldn't let him, fortunately. And so to stand, and then I decided to go to Bible school. So, of course, I had no support there. And I was there for about, 4 months, and I got mononucleosis, so that kind of put an end to that. But in the meantime, most kids were hiding their pornography. I'm hiding my Bible at home. Sneaking. I know, can you imagine? So then I'd sneak off to church. And it's something I always had to take a stand with, and it's never really been accepted by my family. But I had to stand because I know the truth, and the only way they're going to get saved is if I don't give up. So I guess that's how I'm a warrior, because I don't let anybody hinder me from my faith.
And you raised a Navy SEAL.
Navy SEAL, I raised an awesome boy here, and a wonderful daughter, and
She's not here, doesn't matter.
In fact, my father really wanted to blame my faith on Debbie because she was a Christian when we met, but I was a Christian before then, so they couldn't blame her. So it's been a great journey. It's been hard at times, but it's worth it.
Thank you, Stewie.
You're welcome, Keith.
So there's an example of not literally being a physical warrior, but you can call it a spiritual warrior. So that if you can, oh wait, never mind. That's what this is. this for? What do I push? I got it. Whatever. So, also you need to be prepared at all times. So, this would be the warrior's prayer. I have to read off my computer because I guess I'm getting older. My eyes aren't as good. Just don't tell my mom. So, the warrior prayer is, Heavenly Father, I am your warrior. Prepare me for battle. Today I claim victory over Satan by putting on the whole armor of God. I put the girdle of truth. As you can see, I got my little warrior next to him so you can kind of see what's going on over there. I stand firm in the truth of your word, so I will not be a victim of Satan's lies. I put on the breastplate of righteousness. May it guard my heart from evil, so that I will remain pure and holy, protected under the blood of Jesus Christ. I put on the sandals of peace. May I stand firm in the good news of the gospel, so your peace will shine through me and be a light to all I encounter. I take the shield of faith. May I be ready for Satan's fiery darts of doubt, denial, and deceit, so I will not be vulnerable to spiritual defeat. I put on the helmet of salvation. May I keep my mind focused on you, so Satan will not have a stronghold on my thoughts. I take the sword of the Spirit. May the two-edged sword of your word be ready in my hands, so I can expose the tempting words of Satan. By faith, your warrior has put on the whole armor of God. I'm prepared to live this life in spiritual victory. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Yeah, I made it up myself. Next one, Dad. So, looking for some cool traits on a warrior, we found, by we, I mean, the sisters and myself, we were looking for some stuff, and this one is the 11 characters of a warrior, although they only gave 8. So, the 8 characters of a warrior. They can hear me. 8 characteristics of a warrior. Oh, anyways. Dad, can you push it again? So the first trait is, if you want to be a warrior, you must own your inner coward. So if you don't know how big of a coward you are, you have some work to do. Seeing it is the first step. Second step is you're coming out as a coward. It is painful and shameful to realize how fear-driven and inauthentic we are. Don't know what I'm talking about? I'm sorry to break it to you, but then you are merely a coward in denial and you are not a warrior. You don't have a clue. So, first step would be just admitting to the fact that you're scared, but you do it scared. I use the example from my job when I first started. I don't know anything about construction. I just know how to talk to people. So Josh thought I'd be good for because I'm a people person, but I did it afraid. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, talking to offices and not really knowing what to tell them what we do. But part of the job, you live and you learn, but you got to do it afraid, right? So number 2, Dad. Dad, thank you. So if you want to be a warrior, your training comes first. So transcending cowardice or selfishness is both a daily and a lifelong path. If you don't give your spiritual training absolute priority, your coward will have a lot of power over you. Who do you think is the one that whispers in your ear that you don't need to meditate or that it's too difficult or boring? Meet your coward. Are you meditation, prayer regularly, or not practicing at all? Don't call yourself a warrior. You are not facing yourself using a title to create a false sense of self-worth. So I was a baseball player and stuff like that. I go before and after practice, work on my hitting, work on fielding, put in the time to be better than everybody else that I could. So I put the work in so it would translate onto the field, right? Same thing with like my brother when he was going to battle. They had to train for like 6 months before they went on a 4-month deployment. So they're spending so much time where everything becomes second nature. So that's one of the big things when you're, in this case, in like a warfare. So, all right, next. If you want to be a warrior, your word is golden, always. So a warrior speaks from his heart and therefore naturally lives up to his word. His word and his actions are aligned. There is no gap. A coward likes to paint a favorable self-image and will say anything that sounds right in the moment, changing your mind a lot. Excuses, try to avoid commitment or getting away from previous promises regularly. That means you are running away from your true nature. The coward owns you. So, obviously, your word is your bond. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say you're going to try to, whatever the case may be. I don't know. What's a good example? Carl, give me a good example. No, this is about your word being golden. All right. Anyway. Cancel on. There you go. Good job. There you go. Yep. Or anything with your job, you say you can do something for somebody, make sure you follow through. I mean, you understand that. You know, do what you do. You have to keep your word. If you don't, it's going to ruin your business. So I understand that. If you want to be a warrior, you don't put yourself first. Self-preservation at all costs is the domain of the coward. A warrior knows that it is not about him. As a warrior, you don't feel separated, so you don't act as if you feel separated. Only a separated self gives his self-preservation priority. Are most of your actions aimed at creating something beneficial for yourself? Say hi to your coward. So, I mean, when you have kids, they come first, you know, and as much as sometimes you want to kill them, like earlier today. Not you guys are good. But, yeah, I mean, you got to put others above yourself. That's what I love about sports, you know, because everybody's out there for the same goal. Everybody's working for a common goal, and you have different, for football, for example, you have different positions. So if you don't do your position right, you're not going to be successful. So just be good at what you're supposed to do and put others above yourself by working hard so that you're good at what you're doing so that you can make everybody else around you better. Just thought of that. If you want to be a warrior, you develop fearlessness. So a warrior is intimately acquainted with his fears. He knows them as well as a mother knows the names of her children. But his actions are not informed by fear, but by love. He is not without fear, but free from them. Of fear, avoiding fear, spend a lot of time looking for comfort and chasing desire. You are living the cowardly life. So same thing kind of with the job, you know, even though you're afraid, you just do it. You know, it's like when you're in battle, go. You're trained to do it, so you just trust your instincts that what you're taught will translate to the battlefield, basically, or to the football field or to baseball, whatever the case may be, whether it's school, doing your studying, so that way when you have your test, second nature is you know the answer. Next one, Dad. If you want to be a warrior, you don't hide behind your masks and patterns, you reveal them. The coward likes to hide behind masks, successful masks, pretty masks, cool masks are his favorite, smart masks and charming are also convenient. A warrior reveals them for his own sanity, not to impress others. He simply wants his vision to be clear. Are you aware of your masks? Are you committed to unconditional discarding masks, tossing them one after the other? If that is not a wholehearted yes, that is something, or that is coming out of your mouth right now, now you are looking through the lens of a coward. So it's kind of like that whole like chameleon, kind of like you're just doing whatever your friends do because your friends are drinking, you're going to drink with them because that's what your friends do. So for who you are, you know, which is very important to be who you are without trying to impress other people, basically. You know, stand up for who you are. Don't worry about other people think. It's true. I don't care. And they still like me. If you want to be a warrior, you don't hesitate when you are asked to help. A warrior acts because he can, not because he wants to, or if he feels like it. A coward has an agenda and keeps track of good deeds because he expects them back sooner or later. That's like when the Bible, don't tell your right hand what your left hand is. That. A warrior likes to give, a coward likes to benefit. When was the last time somebody reached out to you for help? Was there the slightest bit of reluctancy, felt the slightest bit of rejection towards either the person or his request? Then your coward played you, even if you complied eventually. So I used my friend Josh as an example because he's the type of guy that doesn't hesitate to help at all. I mean, he's probably one of the most generous, and my brother's the same way. You know, they're always willing to help out. They definitely put others above themselves when they don't have to. Would you agree with that? You know, and I know I have my issues. I don't like to help sometimes because I feel like my time is more important. So that's something I have to come over or get over with. So I was telling Amanda that last night. Right? Good talk. And if you want to be a warrior, you are generous. A warrior gives everything because he has no fear of depleting himself nor does he need energy to uphold anything. Everything he has to offer is available. He shares his resources, albeit financial, emotional, intellectual, or physical. You caught yourself trying to give less than you really have and justifying that behavior, even manipulating the truth to make your actions look sincere. You know it. It's your selfish coward once again. So I actually use Josh for that one too, because he's one of the most generous people I've ever met in my life. We went on vacation, he paid for everything. He wouldn't even let me pay for anything. I mean, even my brother paid for my plane ticket. So I went on a free vacation, and it's like it didn't even matter. I mean, it's just crazy the type of people when you surround yourself with. So if this list makes you feel like, man, it's almost impossible to be a warrior all the time, well, then you were right. But it is an ideal worthy of practicing every day. It is okay to be a coward. That is a lot better than calling yourself a warrior when you're not even close. Owning your coward is already pretty courageous, so it is a step in the right direction. Next step is consciously working towards transformation. It is a long process and difficult journey, but very worthwhile. So I'm going to go into the story of Mr. David versus Mr. Goliath. So if y'all can make this very southern, have your Bibles with you. Open up to 1 Samuel 17. Hey, Brandon, why don't you come up here and read for me? No pressure. I know. All right.
The whole thing?
The whole shabam.
Right.
It'll
Down to where?
down to the. It's a long one.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. It's like you're in school.
Too many words.
That's right. If you need help, I'll cheer you on. So.
All right.
So 17, 1 through the end. 50 something.
The Philistines mustered their army for battle and camped between Soko in Judah and Azekah at Ephes Dammim. Saul countered by gathering his Israelite troops near the valley of Elah. So the Philistines and Israelites faced each other on opposite hills, with the valley between them. Then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out of the Philistine ranks to force the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet, and his bronze coat of mail weighed 125 pounds. He also wore bronze leg armor.
Put that in perspective real quick. 9 feet tall. I'm like 6 feet, so 3 feet more. And his armor weighed 125 pounds. That's more than you. So the armor weighed more than having a person on him. Like, that's how big this guy was. And put it in perspective. So put Ashley on you and walk around. That's what he was walking around with. All right, go ahead.
He also wore bronze leg armor, and he carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. The shaft of his spear was as heavy and as thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. His armor-bearer walked with him carrying a shield. Goliath stood and shouted a taunt across to the Israelites. "Why are you all coming out to fight?" he called. "I am the Philistine champion, but you are the servants of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. If he kills me, then we will be your slaves. If I kill him, you will be our slaves. I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me." Then Saul and the Israelites heard this. When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken.
So what's his face? Goliath has been a warrior since he was a kid, right? That's what he says. Been a champion since he was young. Now, he's taunting an army. He's like, it's weird to think that one person is intimidating an entire army of people. Like, I mean, he must have been pretty intimidating if he's got an entire army that's afraid to go after one person. You know, I picture the movie Troy where they have like the one warrior that comes out and fights the other warrior, and whoever wins, wins. But nobody had the gall, the testicular fortitude, to fight him. Is that the wrong word? But yeah, they were too afraid because of just the massiveness of this human being. So, anyways, go ahead, Ben.
Now David was the son of a man named Jesse, an Ephrathite, Bethlehem in the land of Judah. Jesse was an old man at that time, and he had 8 sons. Jesse's 3 oldest sons, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shimea, had already joined Saul's army to fight the Philistines. David was the youngest son. David's 3 oldest brothers stayed with Saul's army, but David went back and forth so he could help his father with the sheep in Bethlehem. For 40 days, every morning and evening, the Philistine champion strutted in front of the Israelite army. One day Jesse said to David, "Take this basket of roasted grain and those 10 loaves of bread and carry them quickly to your brothers, and give these 10 cuts of cheese to their captain. See how your brothers are getting along, and bring back a report on how they are doing." David's brothers were with Saul in the Israelite army at the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines. So David left the sheep with another shepherd and set out early the next morning with the gifts. As Jesse had directed him, he arrived at the camp as the Israelite army was leaving the battlefield with shouts and battle cries. Soon the Israelite and Philistine forces stood facing each other, army against army. David left his things with the keeper of supplies and hurried out to the ranks to greet his brothers. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, came out from the Philistine ranks. Then David heard him shout his usual taunt to the army of Israel. As soon as the Israelite army saw him, they began to run away in fright. "Have you seen the giant?" the men asked. "He comes out each day to divide Israel. The king has offered a huge reward to anyone who kills them. He will give that man one of his daughters for a wife, and the man's entire family will be exempted from paying taxes." David asked the soldiers standing by, "What will a man get for killing this Philistine and ending his defiance of Israel? Who is this pagan Philistine anyway, that he is allowed to defy the armies of the living God?" And these men gave David the same reply. They said, "Yes, that is the reward for killing him." But when David's older brother Eliab heard David talking to the men, he was angry. "What are you doing around here anyway?" he demanded. "What about those few sheep you're supposed to be taking care of? I know about your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle? What have I done now?" David replied. "I was only asking a question." He walked over to some others and asked them the same thing and received the same answer. Then David's question was reported to King Saul, and the king sent for him.
So I look at that like, so you have David who looks at it like it's not the giant that he's worried about. It's the fact that he's disrespecting God, And I feel like David, as a warrior, not quite yet, but he's kind of getting to that point, that he sees that as like he's disrespecting my God, and if he's disrespecting my God, if God's not okay with that, he's going to defend me anyways because he had like crazy faith. I think that's a lesson right there, and it's like it wasn't so much the size of the enemy; it's more about what he was saying that bothered him. It's kind of the way I look at a lot of the politics right now. It's not so much it's not who they are; it's what they stand for. The person is; it's what they stand for.
"Don't worry about this Philistine," David told Saul. "I'll go fight him." "Don't be ridiculous," Saul replied. "There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and he's been a man since youth." But David persisted.
They label it. He's only a boy, right? It's not. That'd be like Brandon going and fighting Goliath. We should say he can't do it. Did we not say that all things are possible? God can do all things. Go back to God, because Christ hadn't come to earth yet. But it's like to me it'd be like if you have a school rivalry, and some reason that school always beats you, so you just naturally in your mind you're already defeated because you're like, that's so and so, that's Wiregrass Ranch High School, and it's against, I don't know who the rival is. Who's their rival? Wesley Chapel? All right, they're playing Wesley Chapel High School, and Wesley Chapel's terrible, and Wiregrass always beats them. So it's like a mindset. I know it's a totally different extreme, but still, it's kind of an analogy of that, or a comparison. Or it's Tom Brady with the Patriots. And then, but look at what he did. You have Tom Brady 20-0, and he loses to a Giants team. That guy catches the football in his helmet. I mean, it's unbelievable, Sorry, Gail. Yeah. All right, go ahead, sorry.
But David persisted. "I have been taking care of my father's sheep and goats. When a lion or bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth."
So think about that. He's going after lions. Me, I'd be more afraid of a lion or here, because that's what they do. That's how they, and they're hunters. they're the alphas. So, it's like he's not afraid of that. Why is he going to be afraid of some guy that's disrespecting God? Go ahead. You're doing
All
great.
right.
Keep up the work.
I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I have done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine.
See, he already knows.
Saul finally consented. All right, go ahead, he said, and may the Lord be with you. Then Saul gave David his own armor and a bronze helmet and a coat of mail. David put it on and strapped the sword over it and took a step or two to see what it was like, for he had never worn such things before. I can't go in these, he protested to Saul. I'm not used to them. So David took them off again. He picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream and put them into a shepherd's bag. Then, armed only with his shepherd's staff and sling, he started across the valley to fight the Philistine.
So when you think about it, right, he goes into war to not put on armor, right? It's almost like with Gideon, like he goes with 30,000 men. Where's the miracle? Where's God working in that? I mean, granted, it's still God working when you have a kid, but I mean, where's God when he just goes out there with a little slingshot and friggin' whips him in the face with it, opposed to when you're dealing with a guy. I don't know. I always thought, like, I wonder if Saul wanted him to put on his equipment so people would think it was Saul in battle, maybe so he could get credit. I don't know, but obviously it was too heavy and it wasn't really what he was capable. It wasn't comfortable for him, right? He didn't use a sword. He ended up using Goliath's sword. So I don't know. I thought it was very interesting because obviously you don't see God working if he has everything on, because it's just like he's another warrior. In this case, he's crazy David.
Goliath walked out towards David with his shield bearer ahead of him, sneering in contempt at this ruddy-faced boy. Am I a dog, he roared at David, that you come at me with a stick? And he cursed David by the names of his gods. Come over here, and I'll give you your flesh to the birds and wild animals, Goliath yelled. David replied to the Philistine, You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. Then I will give you the dead bodies of your men to the birds and the wild animals. And the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with sword and spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us. As Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. Reaching into his shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it with his sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with only a sling and a stone, for he had no sword. Then David ran over and pulled Goliath's sword from its sheath. David used it to kill him and cut off his head.
So it says he grabbed 5 stones. I've read that Goliath, I guess, had 4 of the brothers, so I guess it's just in case the other brothers came so that he can get them too. So he didn't. Obviously, he wasn't questioning whether he was going to kill him on the first throw.
When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they turned and ran. Then the men of Israel and Judah gave a great shout of triumph and rushed after the Philistines, chasing them as far as Gath and the gates of Ekron. The bodies of the dead and wounded Philistines were strewn all along the road from Sharim as far as Gath and Ekron. Then the Israelite army returned and plundered the deserted Philistine camp. David took the Philistine's head to Jerusalem, but he stored the man's armor in his own tent. As Saul watched David go out to fight the Philistine, he asked Abner, the commander of his army, Abner, whose son is this young man? I really don't know, Abner declared. We'll find out who he is, the king told him. As soon as David returned from killing Goliath, Abner brought him to Saul and the Philistine's head still in his hand. Tell me about your father, young man, Saul said, and David replied, His name is Jesse, and we live in Bethlehem.
Thank you, Brandy. Brandy, you are such a good reader. Everybody give Brandon a hand. Thank you. Thank you. So when I'm looking at David, and like I was talking with Brandon last night, we went to the gym together and we were talking, and I was like, because I was telling him, he's, as the oldest, he's the leader of the family with the boys. And I was telling him, I said, it's crazy when you think about this, that when you look at David, I said, that would be like somebody going to our family and saying, Colton's going to be the next king. Colton's 3 years old, and it's like, how do you see that? Because he was youngest of 8 boys, right? So who would have thought that David, the littlest of all of them, would be the mightiest warrior of all of them, and the only one they ever talk about in the Bible, other than their initial this part. It's kind of crazy how that really works. So what makes David a warrior? I would say the fact he had no fear. I think that he had an unwavering faith and relationship with God, that he knew that no matter what, he was going to be okay and that God was going to protect him. And if not, he knew where he was going anyways, but he had the faith and God had a promise at that point. Was that before or after he was, I didn't really read before. I'm trying to remember. Was that before he was, not king, but told he would be a king? That was after? Okay. So yeah. So he already knew he was going to be a king, so he had a promise that he already knew was going to happen. So, and he knows God's not a liar. And I would say he had no fear, as you can see when everybody else is terrified and running away. When Goliath came, he ran to him, not run away from him. So I think that's, you really think about what that would mean. Like that'd be like Brandon running at, or Chase running at Goliath, or I guess, yeah, at Goliath and not being afraid of him. Well, you have grown men, they're like, no, I don't want anything to do with that guy. It kind of puts things in perspective. He stands with God without apology, obviously. I mean, his relationship with God was, very biblical, literally. He, unwavering, he had his falls, but, he's a man after God's own heart. So kind of tells you who he is and who he was in God's eyes. And I would say his experience with his father's sheep and goats trained him for that battle where he wasn't afraid, because I think it'd be real easy to be afraid when you see a giant, literally. It's like when Joshua and Caleb were going to the promised land, how everybody said there's warriors, there's giants in the land, and they were afraid to go, and they weren't afraid to go. It's kind of the same thing where David was the Joshua and the Caleb that wasn't afraid to go at him, where it was the other 10 going in, right? And then, Dad, you go to the next one. And then I also want to talk about David's mighty men. I think it's pretty awesome. That's like the elite forces of back in the day, biblical times. Hey, Chase, why don't you come read this for me? Sucker. All right, so we're going to read, it's 2 Samuel 23, 8 through 23. So David's mightiest warriors. There were 37 of them in all. So, you guys ready? 2 Samuel 23, verses 8 through 23.
These are the names of David's mightiest warriors. The first was Jashobeam the Hackmanite, who was leader of the three.
So he was the elite of the elite.
The three mightiest warriors among David's men. He once used his spear to kill 800 enemy warriors in a single battle.
Now put that in perspective. I mean, try killing everybody in this room in one single battle, let alone 800 men. Yeah. I mean, your shoulder, it probably popped out of socket tons of times. When you're sitting here jabbing, I can only imagine, like, the amount, and, like, not be able to lift your arm afterwards for probably like a week because you're so freaking sore.
Next in rank among the three was Eleazar, son of Dodai, a descendant of Ahoah.
Yeah, they had weird names back then. I'm glad we're not like, good thing they don't call you Dodai. Dodai. Yeah, Dodai. Doo-doo. All right, go ahead, sorry.
Once Eleazar and David stood together against the Philistines when the entire Israelite army had fled. He killed Philistines until his hand was too tired to lift his sword, and the Lord gave him a victory that day. The rest of the army did not return until it was time to collect the plunder.
So think about that. You have the entire military backing, and it's just David, who wasn't the king at the time, but David, actually he was the king at the time, right? I don't know, whatever, I wasn't there. You got David, and you got this guy, Eleazar, and they fought an entire battle by themselves. This dude's hands, you imagine holding something so long that you can't even lift your arm up? Too tired to lift his sword? I mean, that's a lot of killing. A lot of killing. And the fact that the people only came back to collect the plunder, it's like, that would kind of irritate me if I was them, but I guess that's the putting others above yourself within the leadership and the warrior ranking. Go ahead.
Next in rank was Shammah, son of Agi from Harar. One time the Philistines gathered at Lehi and attacked the Israelites in a field full of lentils. The Israelite army fled, but Shammah held his ground in the middle of the field and beat back the Philistines. So the Lord brought about a great victory.
Same thing. Guy beat an entire army by himself. I mean, I don't know if it's a brigade of like 100 people, even if it's 25 people by himself. Back then, it's not like today where you just take out a gun and just shoot them. I mean, you have to go and get on top of them, so you're surrounded by people.
Once during the harvest, when David was at the cave of Adullam, the Philistine army was camped in the valley of Rephaim. The three, who were among the 30, an elite group among David's fighting men, went down to meet him there. David was staying in the stronghold at the time, and a Philistine detachment had occupied the town of Bethlehem. David remarked longingly to his men, "Oh, how I would love some of that good water from the well by the gate in Bethlehem." So the three broke through the Philistine lines, drew some water from the well by the gate in Bethlehem, and brought it back to David. But he refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out as an offering to the Lord. "The Lord forbid that I should drink this," he exclaimed. "This water is as precious as the blood of these men who risked their lives to bring it to me."
So David is a great leader because not only did these crazy guys go and get him water from behind enemy lines and risk their lives just so he can get a sip of water that he wanted, but he was as much of a leader slash warrior slash friend that he wouldn't even drink it. So he poured it to God as a sacrifice, basically as an offering. So, I mean, that kind of shows you the character of David too. That he didn't look at himself as better than them, which I think says a lot about, especially when you're in a leadership role, it's hard not to make yourself better than somebody else because you're in that position.
So David did not drink it. These are examples of the exploits of the three.
So they're pretty awesome.
Abishai, son of Zeruiah,
Zariah. Whatever.
the brother of Joab, was the leader of the 30. He once used a spear to kill 300 enemy warriors in a single battle. It was by such feats that he became as famous as the three. Abishai was the most famous of the 30 and was their commander, though he was not one of the three. There was also Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, a valiant warrior from Kabzeel. He did many heroic deeds, which included killing 2 champions of Moab. Another time, on a snowy day, he chased a lion down into a pit and killed it. Once, armed only with a club, he killed an imposing Egyptian warrior who was armed with a spear. Benaiah wrenched the spear from the Egyptian's hand and killed him with it.
So I think it's kind of crazy. I've listened to something and they brought this up and it made me, I thought it was pretty crazy. So when you look at it, it says, on a snowy day, he chased a lion down into a pit. So he ran a lion into a pit where they're probably surrounded by the pit, and yet he still went in there. Instead of running away because it's in the pit, he decides to jump in there and kill it. It's a pretty crazy dude. You know, like I said, he didn't have a gun to shoot him with or anything like that. He went in there and actually clubbed it to death.
Deeds like these made Benaiah as famous as the 3 mightiest warriors. He was more honored than the other members of the 30, though he was not one of the 3. And David made him captain of his bodyguard.
All right, and then the others, thank you. Good job, Chase. Yay, smart people. So, and the other ones are just the names of everybody else. You can look it up. It's great stuff. So, let me go back to my PowerPoint. So anyway, so that's, to me, with the mighty men, they were beyond loyal, right? I mean, obviously David trusts those guys with his life. You put others' lives above their own. As you can see with the 3, when they go now and get in the water, and you know, when there was a battle, that one guy stayed and fought off 300 men by himself. So obviously he was willing to defend the weaker of the people. Then it kind of makes you think. You ever seen 300? You know how in 300 like ask like the guys like what's their profession? Guy's like, oh, I'm a pot maker. And then he goes, hey Spartans, what is your profession? He's like, who? Because they're warriors. That's all they do. They just go out and freaking kill people. That's kind of like these guys. But there wasn't 300 of them. There was 37. But that's basically them. So they were fearless and they overcame adversity, right? They overcame adversity. There's different situations where they were with David, where Saul's trying to find them, and David didn't want to touch God's anointed, but they protected him, and they were trustworthy, which to me is muy importante. So my question is, are you willing to be a warrior? Are you willing to put others above yourself? Or is it only about what people can do for you? And that's a hard thing to really think about. I mean, everybody just wants something from somebody. They're not willing to put out there to help others out, right? So are you willing? I give Darlene that. She's really good about putting people above herself. Willing to do it afraid, whatever that may mean in your life, right? I don't care what that means. Are you willing to do it afraid? It could be going to school and standing for something, whether it's going to work and doing something you don't know what the heck you're doing. It's whatever the case may be, whatever it is, getting new clients, whatever, getting new clients, get new clients. But yeah, so whatever that may be, do it afraid, because you'll never be capable of unless you do, right? So there's fear of failure, but there's also fear of success. And I feel like sometimes the fear of success holds people back too. Are you willing to put the time and training into be a warrior? You go to the gym, you train. I go to the gym, I train. She goes to the gym, she trains. Are you willing to put that effort? You're going to read your Bible, you're going to pray, you're going to do all the stuff that comes with that. It's not just saying you're going to do it, it's living it. Because your life is a testimony, right? And if you're not living a godly life, you're not a warrior of Christ, because you are just a hypocritical turd muffin, which nobody likes. I changed the word I was going to say. That was nice what I was going to say. Is your word your bond? I mean, it's very important that if you say you're going to do something, I can call Wayne all the time, and he's always willing to help me. And I appreciate that. So, whatever it is, he's always willing to help. So his word is his bond. I'll be there to help you, Keith, and he's there, right? Preach it, brother. Are you willing to be yourself and not who everyone else is? It's funny. When I lived in California, I had a buddy. His name is JP. He played for the Chargers. He was a freaking top-notch athlete. This guy's a freak. I always tell him, I was like, JP, I said, you did a swan dive in the gene pool. I said, I did a belly flop. I mean, I didn't really, but compared to him, I did. I mean, the guy was all-American, like track and everything. This guy was a freak. But one thing he wrote me a letter, which is weird because, he's not the type of person I expect to write a letter. But he told me that one thing he appreciated of me is that I kept it real. Like, I was who I said I was, and I appreciated that. And I appreciated that he could see that, because he was around me a lot. So we worked out together like every day. I'm a really good friend. He's just a good guy. And I said, are you willing to help no matter what? And that's my hardest one. I like helping on my time. I mean, it's true. I mean, am I wrong? Amanda, am I wrong? Yeah. Yeah, we had that conversation of, like a couple months ago. So, but hey, at least I'm man enough to freaking admit it. I don't claim to be something I'm not. Are you willing to give anything and everything without reservation and wanting or needing anything in return? That's kind of like the putting people above yourself. But a lot of people like to give, but they want to tell you about giving. I gave Joe Schmo a pair of Jordans, but then I have to tell everybody in here. So who's really getting, there's God saying, there you go, there's the credit you need. It's treasures in heaven, right? I mean, I'd rather have a freaking giant mansion for eternity, because that'll be so much more fun to live in, just being real. But yeah. And then, next one, Dad. So I said, Jesus is the ultimate warrior and champion of faith, right? Jesus came as a perfect sacrifice to put all humanity in front of himself, even knowing that was certain death. He exemplifies the true warrior spirit with his life. It's a video, you'll see. Oh, yeah, the tunnel of death. The tunnel of goodness. No, it's descending angels. Anyways, so But yeah, Jesus was the perfect and the ultimate champion because he came to earth knowing he was going to die, still did everything he had to do, and even when he had a chance to call off the angels or call the angels to protect him, he didn't. I mean, that's literally that's putting the entire world, literally, above yourself. So I got a video, and I got one more thing I want to read afterwards, but Colin's the same guy that did the video I showed you that you thought was really corny, but I don't really care. Remember that one that was like Satan bite the dust one? It was that memorable, huh? This is Carmen. He was popular when we were younger, but it's a good video. It's called Champion, and I just think it's a cool video. So